DS-ADAPT X versus Titleist GT2. Today, I'm going to be taking you through 6 different data sets, 2 different swing speeds, 3 areas across the face, hours and hours of hitting, hundreds of shots this took me to collect this data to give you guys one of the most in-depth performance-based tests of these clubs anywhere on YouTube. So the swing speeds will be at 90 mile an hour and then 105 mile an hour. And then we'll be breaking down the strike data across the face into 3 separate data sets at each of those speeds. A good average data set with centered strikes, really bad toe strikes, and really bad heel strikes. Again, breaking it all down and giving you guys all the averages of how these heads perform at those different speeds and across the face. Today, the question is, can the Cobra keep up with the Titleist out the middle and especially across the face and at a price point that's more than £100 cheaper than the Titleist? So we have 2 versions of this video. This one you're watching is the data only short edit. So it's just going to be me sitting here today talking you through all of the data that I got from the test. If you're interested in watching the full test, where I show you all of the hitting, all of the shots, individually talk you through all of the data, pinpoint specific shots, like mega in depth, I'll link that one below. Right, so let's jump into this data. Start off with a 90 mile an hour swing speed. I'll run you quickly through the specs that I had of each club. So at the 90 mile an hour swing speed, we had the Cobra DS-ADAPT X 10.5, just set neutral at 10.5. Obviously, you've got a front and a back weight with this, a 3 gram and a 10 gram. So for this test, the 10 gram was at the back to kind of mimic the GT2. Shaft-wise, we had the Accra 150 M3, so the GX Series 150 M3, playing 45 inches in length. GT2, 10 degree head. Obviously, I don't do a 10.5, but I can adjust by half a degree on my universal adapter system that we use here. So I had a 10 degree turned up fractionally to 10.5 to match the loft. Again, obviously no front or back weight with this. Well, just a back weight, which I just left standard. And again, exactly the same shaft going straight into this head as well. So very comparable and fair setups. So starting off in the DS-ADAPT X, 90 mile an hour swing speed, and this is the good strike data. So anything within 10 millimeters of the center counted as a good strike. Ball speed, 127.7. Launch, 16.1. Backspin, 2,722. Now that equated to a carry yardage on average of 209. Rolling out to a total of 231. Moving into the GT2, again 90 mile an hour, good strikes. Ball speed, 128.1, so a fraction more, you're talking a fraction more. Launch, 15.6, so half a degree less. Again, fairly comparable, but a tiny bit lower. Backspin, 2979, so we did see a couple hundred revs more coming from the GT2, and that is something when I was doing all the hitting, I'm always really looking at pretty much every single shot. I think I did at this speed see consistently a little bit more backspin coming from the GT2. So that all equated to a carry yardage on average of 207, rolling out to a total of 228. And in terms of average dispersion, there really was nothing in it, if I'm completely honest, with these 2 heads. I mean, as a professional fitter who's done thousands and thousands of fittings, my personal opinion is the reality of dispersion is going to come far more down to the human swinging than it is the club, really. But what I do like to do is give you guys an idea if a club is maybe slightly more right or left biased on average, if it's a bit easier to turn over or if it's a bit more fade biased, because then at least that gives you an idea as to whether or not the club might be a bit better or a bit worse for your specific miss. And in this case, I mean, the Cobra might be a fraction more right biased, I would say, possibly a neutral setup, but you're talking margins. I mean, really, in terms of bias, I think they're fairly even. So I guess the only other thing to note on the good data set is feel-wise, I would edge it to the Cobra, just about. I mean, I think that I'm not the best at describing the feel, but if you haven't gone and tested these new DS-ADAPTs yet, I really would recommend doing so. The feel is really nice off the face. It's kind of like melty. It's a bit of a weird word, but it's kind of like soft but responsive, but feels like it comes off really nice. It's just got a really nice feel to it, where the kind of the pitch of the GTs maybe a touch higher, which makes it feel, I won't say harsher, but maybe a little bit firmer off the face. So still fantastic feeling, but that kind of soft melty feeling of the Cobra, it just comes off the face really nice. So feel wise, probably just edge to the Cobra. And if you're interested in the club delivery aspect of all of this data, kind of the strike to the millimeter, the efficiency, the angle of attack, the path, the face to path, peak height, angle of descent, all of the real in-depth tech nerdy stuff, that is going to be in the full extended version of this video, which will be linked in the description below. Okay, so that's good data at 90 mile an hour. So moving into the miss-hit data now. So if we look at the toe, and I was getting some unbelievably bad strikes with this. I mean, when I say I'm testing the toe, it's not like 5-6 millimeters in the toe. It's like 30 millimeters in the toe. Some of them were even 40 millimeters in the toe with these clubs. So really, really testing the full forgiveness of these clubs. So we move into the Cobra DS-ADAPT X. Average toe strikes at 90 mile an hour. Ball speed, we were looking at 120.2. So basically a 7 to 8 mile an hour drop off on ball speed. Average launch angle of 17.5 and average backspin rate of 2.894. So fairly similar spin, which is great. Distance drop off, which is the biggie. So we have an average carry of 191 yards, rolling out to a total of 212. So effectively a 20-yard drop off, which in all honesty, is really good for how bad that I was hitting it. And the overall experience of miss hitting this way out the toe, very impressive. Like we were seeing a little bit of gear effects. Obviously, when we hit out the toe, the face is going to gear open. But in terms of the curvature, it wasn't really curving at all. It was dipping out the sky. It was holding its line really, really well. So moving into the GT2, 90 mile an hour with those horrendous toe strikes. And again, if you want to go and watch the full edition where I really take you through everything, I always make sure that the strike is super, super comparable. I see if I can put it up on the screen. The average strike with both these two, again, was horrendous. Like I'm talking really bad. So numbers with the GT2, average ball speed, 121.8. So we did see a little bit more ball speed retention coming at the GT2. And I did swing these on average. It was 88.9 versus 88.8. So literally the swing speed was identical. Average strike in terms of how far out the toe it was virtually identical. So a little bit more ball speed coming out of the GT2. Launch, 16.5. Backspin 3000, so again, even hitting out of the toe, we do see a little bit more spin coming from the GT2 versus the Cobra, and that equated to an average carry of 192, rolling out to 213. So again, literally there's 1 yard in it between the Cobra and the GT2, miss hitting it miles out the toe. So again, very comparable to hitting out the middle in terms of the amount of drop off that we got. Yeah, we saw a little bit more efficiency retention from the GT2, but what that actually equated to in terms of distance was virtually an identical amount of drop off. Again, in terms of the stability, when I was doing the hitting in the full version, I think I just edged it to the Titleist over the Cobra, maybe seeing a fraction less gear effect and a tiny bit more ball speed retention. But in all honesty, I mean, if you gave that a 9 out of 10, this would be maybe a 9.2 out of 10. So a bit better, but in terms of the actual results that we were seeing, in terms of the direction, the curvature, the distance, it was time. And again, in terms of the average dispersion, I'll see if I can pop that up on the screen. It was showing that the Cobra was coming out slightly better in terms of the dispersion. Again, I think you've got to take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. I'm trying to swing at a swing speed way slower than my own, trying to miss hit it on purpose, well out of the toe. So you've got to take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. What I will say is that when I delivered them both well, i.e. a good face to path, and miss hit it, both of them were ending up in the fairway. Okay, so let's touch on the heel strike data. Again, at 90 mile an hour, I did exactly the same thing, got a good data set of really terrible heel strikes. I mean, I'm talking 30 plus millimeters out of the heel, some of these were. I'll see if I can put the average strike data up on screen for you now. And again, I always make sure that I get a very comparable, fair data set. I'm basically trying to be a robot. That's what I'm trying to be. I'm not, but I'm trying my best to give these heads a fair comparison and show you guys what they actually do on an equal level playing field. So the DS-ADAPT X, we had a ball speed on average of 121.7. Again, really solid, not actually losing that much against the toe strike. These modern drivers really are coming on a lot in their heel. They used to be just terrible, absolutely awful out the heel, but now they're really not that bad. So ball speed 121.7, launch of 14.9. Backspin 2782, again, very consistent. One thing I noticed about this, honestly, again, if you go watch the full version, like the backspin consistency of this Cobra across the face, I'd give this the win over the Titleist, in all honesty. The amount of times I saw a same spin rate across the face, even at different swing speeds, remarkably consistent. Average carry of 192 yards and total distance of 215. Again, so very, very similar to the drop off on the toe strike, in all honesty, which again is really impressive. It used to be you got a lot more drop off at the heel than you would at the toe, but yeah, this thing just really did seem impressive at the heel. And then jumping into the GT2, again, swing speed wise, it was literally the average of this data set. They were both bang on 90 mile an hour. So very, very fair and comparable. And again, I would have shown you already the average strike, very, very fair and equal. Ball speed, 122.2. So again, fraction more ball speed out of the GT2, but you really are talking a fraction. Launch, 15.2. Backspin, 3,119. So again, the consistency of the GT2 spinning more than the Cobra retains out the middle, out the heel, and out the toe. It's definitely a bit of a high spin head. Carry, 192. Total, 211. So apparently we got slightly less run out, potentially because a little bit more backspin, but the carry, 192 drop off, but again, was absolutely identical, like no real difference. And if anything, to be honest, I've got to say it might be slightly the reverse at the heel, whereas I probably might have even just edged it to the DS. Again, data-wise, there's nothing really in it. Again, I'll see if I can put up the average dispersion. It was virtually the same. Really, the gear effect was pretty similar. The curvature was pretty similar. Both unbelievably stable. I don't know, there was something about when I was hitting this, it felt maybe fractionally better. Like the misses didn't feel quite as bad. And the results were just honestly remarkably impressive. But again, it would be the same thing out of the toe as if that's a 9, that's a 9.2. Like, honestly, it's just remarkable. But even at the fact that, again, that the Cobra really is keeping up in terms of out the middle, out the heel, out the toe, with the GT2 at this price point, really is doing a phenomenal job. Right, so let's jump into the 105 mile an hour swing speed data. So again, we did exactly the same thing, hitting both club, out the middle, out the heel, out the toe, breaking it down into 3 in-depth data sets. We did switch up the setup a little bit. So we went from the 10.5 down to the 9-degree head in both of these. Still with the 10-gram weight at the back in the DS-ADAPT X, but moving down into the 9-degree shaft. We went from the Acura into the 2024 Velocore Plus Ventus Red 5S, so effectively 50 stiff. Again, 45-inch plane length, but of course that shaft went into both of the heads to keep it fair. So DS-ADAPT X, 105 mile an hour swing speed, good centered data set. Ball speed, 150.6. Launch angle, 12.8 on average. Backspin, 2703. So not really that different to at the 90 mile an hour with the 10.5, to be fair. Average carry, 256. Rolling out to 279. Okay, so GT2, 105 swing speed, good centered strikes. Ball speed, 150.8. It's only 0.2 of a mile an hour in it, like identical. Launch angle, on average 13.2. So again, a fraction more, but 12.8 to 13.2. I mean, the standard deviations were basically overlapping. So I feel like you could do this, and each time you did this test, you could be a little bit one way or the other. It was very, very, very close. Average spin, 2721. So now the gap really closes against the launch and spin. Literally like nothing in it at this speed whatsoever. Average carry, 257. Average total, 280. So these two heads at this loft, like, could not split them. Really, ball speed the same, launch the same, spin the same, peak height the same, descent the same, carry the same, total the same. Like, literally, like hitting them back to back to back to back to back. Could barely tell that they were different heads, in all honesty. Again, I probably would say I marginally preferred the feel of the Cobra. Again, that little bit softer. But in terms of the actual data, the ball flight, the distance, just like insane. And again, in terms of average dispersion, not that much to speak of, if I'm brutally honest. I'll see if I can put it up on the screen from the test. Maybe at times it felt a tiny bit harder to close the face on the Cobra. So again, maybe fractionally more right side bias with this, but again, that's going to be very player dependent. So if you're really thinking about buying one of these two drivers, as always, I'd recommend going and getting fitted and testing it. Right, so that's good data sets. Let's touch on these terrible miss hits. So we did exactly the same thing again. So 105 mile an hour toe strikes. One thing I will mention, I'll see if I can put the data up on the screen from the actual full test, which again is linked below. I did hit it about 2 mil more in the toe with the DS-ADAPT X and probably 2 mil lower in the toe with this. So the strike was fractionally worse, I would say, with the Cobra, and the swing speed was 0.7 of a mile an hour slower. Again, trying to be a robot as much as I can, but we averaged 102.3 with this and 103 with the GT. So fractionally faster swing speed with the GT2 and fractionally more toey strike on average with the dark speed. So with the DS-ADAPT X, we averaged 142.5 mile an hour ball speed. So again, not too dissimilar in terms of the drop off from the 90-mile-an-hour swing speed, about 7, 8-ish mile an hour in terms of the ball speed drop. We got an average launch of 13.8, so not too dissimilar to out the middle, in all honesty, and backspin of 2,735. Again, really not too dissimilar to out the middle at all. So that equated to an average carry of 238 rolling out to an average 259. So again, 20-yard drop off, exactly the same as what we saw at the 90-mile-an-hour swing speed, which again might surprise some of you, thinking if I swing 15 mile an hour quicker, you're going to expect to maybe see more of a drop off. You're going to get punished more at a faster swing speed, but in reality, it's exactly the same. So moving into the GT2, 105 swing speed, terrible toe strikes. And again, same thing, mishit it so badly. Honestly, some of them, one of them, I can't remember if it was this or the darks, but I literally missed the face. I almost hit the quad. I was hitting it that badly out with the toe. And some of the results, insanely impressive. Like, these modern drivers are so good on off-center hits. I don't know how they're going to be getting better year on year. I really don't. I don't even know if it's possible. Yeah, discussion for another time. But let's touch on the data. Ball speed average, 144.2. Average launch of 12.1 degrees. So weirdly, that does come down, which I'm not really too sure where that came from, considering on average I struck it a tiny bit higher in the head with this, which does generally help increase launch. The dynamic loft to impact with both of them were identical. And angle of attack, I did actually hit slightly more up on this. So really, it should have launched higher. But that's what the average data said. Launched at 12 degrees. Backspin was 2731. Compared to Cobra's 2735. So again, at this speed, we're seeing basically identical spins with these two heads. And that equated to an average carry of 240, rolling out to 264. So again, a couple more yards, a little bit more rollout, a couple more yards on average carry. But again, did swing it at fraction faster. So, I mean, you're really nitpicking like a couple of yards here, a couple of yards there, 0.1 efficiency here. Like, again, genuinely insanely close. Again, dispersion circle was quite a bit wider with the dark speed. Again, I don't know. Read into that what you will. Personally, I think it's going to be a lot more me than it is the club in terms of, again, the shots that I was seeing that were reasonably well swung. You know, obviously, it doesn't matter if the face is pointing over there or face is pointing over there. You can hit it anywhere on the face. It's irrelevant. It's going to be a big miss. But if you deliver the club somewhat in a reasonably good fashion, like reasonably square face, again, both of them were ending up easily in the fairway. So jumping into the average heel strike, 105 mile an hour. Honestly, hated doing this so much. I hate the heel strikes. Like, toe strikes, doesn't feel too bad. Heel strikes, feels like you're going to snap the shaft. Feels horrendous. And again, I got some such bad shots in there. Hopefully you guys aren't mishitting it that badly, because it did feel like the club was just going to break. So two quick things to pinpoint in this data set. I'll try and show you the average strike data now. I did strike the Titleist fractionally higher in the head, which normally influences launch slightly, but they were pretty much identical in terms of how far out the heel they both were, which is great in terms of a comparison for you guys. Swing speed, I did swing the DS-X half a mile an hour slower. It was 103.6 with this to 104 with this, so fractionally slower. But again, similar to the slower swing speed, I did actually feel like we maybe edged it to the DS-X out of the heel. Efficiency on average with this was 1.39 versus 1.38 with the GT2. So again, getting a tiny little bit more efficiency out of this, out of the heel. So that equated to an average ball speed of 143.8 with the DS-X, average launch of 12.1, average backspin of 2989, so essentially 3000. Average carry of 233, rolling out to 253. So again, when compared to the really bad toe strikes, I know they were terrible, but we're only losing 5 more yards with a horrific heel strike when compared to a toe strike, which again is really impressive, especially at this speed. But we do now see a 26-yard drop-off when we compare to a good data set out the middle. But again, for how bad these strikes were, I mean, I really tested the extremities of mishitting 26 yards. It's still very impressive in my opinion. And again, the same thing goes that when I was delivering it well and I mishit it, I mean, again, there was some really bad ones. I mean, go and watch the full version. You want to see some of these mishits. There were some really bad ones that, again, when you delivered the club reasonably well, was still just giving me a nice little fade back to center. Okay, we did get a little bit more drop off on the really bad ones. Of course, you would expect that, but you still ended up in the fairway. It just genuinely like really, really impressive. So now average heel strike data with the GT2. And remember, I did swing this fractionally faster. So we had an average ball speed of 143.2, so fractionally less. Now I will pinpoint, remember I said I struck this fractionally higher in the head, only a couple of mil, but it was a little bit higher. But high on the face is a less efficient part of the head than low in the head. So again, if I'd have struck that a couple of mil lower, would that have come up to the same efficiency as the Cobra? Quite possibly, to be honest. But again, it's 0.1 difference. But we did see fractionally less ball speed from the GT2, half a mile an hour. Launch of 13.9, again, a bit higher. Again, remember I said I did strike it a touch higher in the face, which generally does influence that launch a little bit. So again, take from that what you will. 13.9 average launch, average spin 3,000. So again, we're still seeing basically out the middle, out the heel, out the toe, these heads spin exactly the same. Like absolutely no difference whatsoever. And that gave us an average carry of 234 and an average total of 254. So again, 1 yard in it on average. Like across the different speeds, across the different strikes, like genuinely these heads are remarkably close. Which again, as I said at the start of this video, if the Cobra can keep up with the Titleist in terms of performance at the middle, and especially the miss hits really, because we know that's where a lot of the gains are going to be coming in terms of the stability, then it's really a win for the Cobra, being 100 quid, I think more than £100 cheaper. Looks wise, again, it's going to be very subjective. I mean, you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Personally, I still think the Titleist looks a little bit sort of classier, a little bit more classic. Again, actually down by the ball, front to back, there's not that much difference. I mean, they're both a little bit more elongated, both completely different looks. Obviously, you've got sort of the matte satin finish of the Cobra and the high gloss of the Titleist. So a lot of people will prefer one or the other. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. But really, for the price point, the performance of this Cobra, and the fact that now obviously you've got the sleeve with, they say 33 different adjustments, is probably actually more like 45 or 50. Like, it's insane, the adjustments. So the adjustability is better with the Cobra, not only with the sleeve, but you also have a front and back weight as well, which we will be testing in due course. The adjustability goes to the Cobra. Feel probably goes to the Cobra. Looks, subjective. Me personally, I'll probably edge it to the Titleist. But performance, genuinely and honestly, from hitting these clubs for hours on end at different swing speeds with different setups all over the face, there's just no difference. But again, as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts of what you thought of this video specifically, this first ever video I've ever done like this, completely data only, just talking you through the numbers, not as in-depth as I normally do. Again, we've still got that down below, the full in-depth, like basically unedited version. It will be long, lots of hitting, taking you through all of the data as I normally do. So if you want to go and watch that, again, it's linked down below. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this format and this idea. It's going to be a little bit quicker, just taking you straight to the point, right? This is the data, these are the numbers, this is how it performed. So yeah, please do let me know what you thought about this video below. If you'd like to see more, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.